Sometimes the past whispers louder than the present. Jack Harper muttered as he pushed open the heavy, rusted doors of the abandoned church, a chill rushing in and scattering clouds of dust into the pale morning light. The stained glass above fractured into shards that caught slivers of sun and cast fractured colors across the cracked stone floor. Ranger at his side, ears high, tail low but tense, sniffing the air with an awareness that seemed almost human. Jack's boots crunching over broken pews and scattered hymnals, each step echoing in the vast, empty space as the wind slipped through the gaping holes in the roof, carrying with it the faint scent of aged wood and old incense, a faint metallic tang that made his nostrils flare. He ran a gloved hand over the rough surface of the altar, dust motes dancing in the sunbeams like tiny specters, a low hum of silence that felt alive. Almost expectant, Ranger suddenly froze, pawing at the edge of a raised panel beneath the altar, growling. Softly, his amber eyes fixed on the spot with unwavering intensity. Jack knelt beside him, feeling the warmth of the dog's fur and the steady rhythm of his pulse, his fingers brushing the edge of the panel, lifting it to reveal a narrow, dark opening, a staircase curling down into the shadowed earth, the smell of damp stone and old secrets rising from the depths. Jack's heart quickening, the floorboards creaking under their combined weight, the light of his flashlight cutting through the darkness, illuminating carved patterns in the walls that hinted at long-forgotten rituals, each step downward a measured rhythm, the sound of dripping water echoing off the stone, a faint draft stirring the air, making the small chamber below seem alive with anticipation. Jack could feel the weight of years pressing in, the hushed reverence of the space folding around them like a shroud. Ranger moving cautiously, nose low, ears flicking at every subtle vibration, leading Jack toward a wooden chest tucked into a corner, its surface etched with faded symbols and worn smooth by time. He reached out, brushing away dust and cobwebs, revealing the faint glimmer of metal fastenings. Jack paused, taking a slow breath, sensing the moment stretch, a quiet understanding passing between him and Ranger that something extraordinary waited within. As he lifted the lid, the faint scent of old parchment and polished wood mingled with the cool stone air, revealing a collection of letters, manuscripts, and small artifacts, treasures not of gold or jewels, but of stories, history, and faith. The light of the flashlight catching the edges of yellowed pages and glinting ink, Jack's eyes widening in wonder. Ranger sitting firmly beside him, chest heaving, tail flicking slowly in anticipation, the silence of the church above pressed down like a benediction. And in that quiet, Jack felt the echo of countless lives who had once filled this space with song, prayer, and hope, a connection across time and space that left him breathless. Realizing that the act of stepping inside this forgotten place had opened a doorway not only to secrets beneath the altar, but to a deeper understanding of purpose, presence, and the unseen miracles waiting for those willing to notice. Jack Harper paused at the bottom of the spiral staircase, his flashlight casting a warm glow over the stone walls that seemed to hum with stories long forgotten. Ranger standing alert beside him, nose twitching, ears high, sensing the subtle shifts in the air as if listening to whispers from the past. Jack moved slowly, each footstep echoing softly, the faint scent of candle wax and aged wood lingering around him. He traced his gloved fingers over the carvings on the chest, feeling the intricate grooves worn smooth by time, a mixture of reverence and anticipation tightening in his chest. Ranger nudged a small bundle of parchment with his nose, revealing letters tied with faded ribbons, the edges curled and yellowed, the ink delicate yet still legible. Jack untied them carefully, unfolding the first sheet, reading words written decades ago by hands guided by hope and devotion. Stories of the congregation that had once gathered here, the lives they had touched, and the hidden treasures of faith and generosity left behind. A faint light filtered from a narrow crack above, casting shadows that danced across the walls. Jack noticed the subtle details in the architecture, the way the stone archways curved perfectly to support the roof, the way the floor sloped slightly toward the altar as though guiding the steps of the faithful. Ranger pawed again, drawing Jack toward a small alcove tucked behind the altar, the air cooler there, carrying a whisper of history and the faint tang of minerals. A delicate bell hung above the space, motionless yet seemingly alive, and Jack realized it must have rung for decades without a hand to toll it. He lifted the bundle of letters, the sound of the pages brushing together sharp in the stillness, and felt a connection to the people who had written them, a quiet communion across time. Ranger leaned close, nuzzling Jack's shoulder, grounding him in the moment. Jack noticed a faint outline in the stone beneath the alcove, a hidden panel almost invisible without the light of the flashlight. Dust disturbed as if recently touched, he pressed gently, and the panel gave way to reveal a small compartment. Inside lay an assortment of handcrafted objects, delicate ornaments, and a ledger filled with names and notes detailing gifts made to support the church and the surrounding community. Jack ran his hand over the smooth wood, feeling the pulse of generosity left behind, realizing that this secret beneath the altar was not merely a relic, but a testament to lives dedicated to kindness and faith. He breathed deeply, the cool air filling his lungs, and felt a profound sense of peace, the weight of the decades lifting slightly as if the building itself was grateful for their presence. Ranger sat beside him, tail flicking slowly, eyes alert, as if acknowledging that the discovery was meant to be witnessed. Jack carefully cataloged each item, his mind connecting the stories of the past with the quiet longing of the present, a gentle hum of understanding settling over him. And for a moment, the vastness of the abandoned church felt intimate, alive with the echoes of hope, devotion, and the enduring power of kindness that had been carefully hidden, waiting for someone patient enough to uncover it and appreciate the quiet miracle that had endured through time. Jack Harper carefully lifted each artifact from the hidden compartment, the soft scrape of wood against wood echoing in the still chamber beneath the altar, Ranger's amber eyes following every movement, ears tilting at the faintest whisper of wind that slipped through the cracks above. Jack ran his fingers over a delicate carved cross, tracing the worn edges, feeling the history of hands that had shaped it decades before. A small, leather-bound journal fell open, pages brittle and yellowed, filled with meticulous records of community support, prayers, and messages of hope. Jack read quietly, the words painting vivid images of the lives touched by generosity and faith. The faint smell of old parchment mingled with the cool stone, a comforting aroma that seemed to settle into his bones. Ranger moved closer, resting his head lightly against Jack's leg, the warmth of the dog grounding him as he absorbed the stories. The chamber itself seemed to breathe around them, the hum of silence, almost musical, as if the building remembered the devotion of those who had come before. Jack gently placed the artifacts back, arranging them as they might have been, the act of careful handling a gesture of respect for the lives encapsulated within. A faint ray of sunlight slipped through a small crack above, illuminating a dust mote that floated like a tiny star, and Jack felt a quiet joy, a sense of connection spanning decades. Ranger's tail flicked once, a subtle signal of approval. Jack traced the contours of the walls, noticing inscriptions nearly worn away, symbols that spoke of faith, hope, and perseverance, each detail a testament to human kindness preserved through time. He allowed himself a deep breath, letting the calm of the chamber settle over him. The faint sound of dripping water, a gentle metronome marking the passage of moments in this sacred space. Ranger stood and paced lightly, nose low to the ground, guiding Jack toward a narrow alcove where the air carried the faint scent of cedar and minerals. Jack knelt to examine the space, finding more small artifacts, a collection of carefully folded letters, photographs with edges curling, and a pair of glasses resting atop a folded cloth, each item evoking stories of individuals who had walked these halls long ago, the quiet reverence of the place pressing gently on his mind. Jack felt a growing sense of purpose, a realization that this discovery was more than a hidden treasure. It was a bridge to lives and histories meant to be remembered. Ranger brushed against him, a nudge that seemed to say the work here was meaningful. Jack carefully cataloged the objects in his mind, noting their condition and the emotions they carried, the chamber's shadows dancing in the flashlight beam, casting shapes that resembled angels or watchers. He smiled faintly at the thought, the sense of being guided, of uncovering something sacred, a miracle of persistence and care. Jack rose slowly, lifting Ranger to stand beside him, the pair sharing a silent acknowledgement of the depth of the moment, the light shifting through cracks in the stone walls. The air cool but filled with the warmth of legacy and devotion. Jack felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of guardianship settling upon him, as though he had been entrusted with preserving the memory and faith of all those who had come before. Ranger gave a low, approving whine, tail flicking, and together they stepped back to take in the full scope of the chamber, the silence enveloping them like a soft blanket, carrying with it the echoes of hope, faith, and enduring kindness that would remain long after their footsteps faded. Jack Harper took a slow step back, the soft scrape of his boot on the stone floor mingling with the faint drip of water echoing through the chamber. Ranger at his side, amber eyes reflecting the beam of the flashlight, ears pricked and alert to every whisper of sound. The air cool and heavy with the scent of aged wood and mineral. Jack let his fingers linger on the edge of the carved chest one last time. Feeling the subtle grooves as though touching the memories themselves, he rose fully, brushing dust from his jacket, and glanced up the narrow staircase. Sunlight from the broken stained glass above casting fractured light across the floor, illuminating specks of dust that floated like tiny stars suspended in the air. Ranger stepped forward, nudging Jack gently as if urging him to continue exploring. A soft exhale of anticipation escaping from Jack as he followed the dog through the winding path of the underground chamber, the walls narrowing and the ceiling dipping low enough for him to brush his gloved hand along rough stone. Every detail etched into the surface telling silent stories of care and devotion. A faint glow appeared ahead, a thin stream of light filtering through a crack in the stone ceiling. Jack adjusted his flashlight to focus on the source, discovering a second compartment tucked into the corner, a collection of small, handcrafted figurines and scrolls carefully arranged as though awaiting discovery. He knelt again, gently lifting each piece to examine the details, the artistry and patience evident in every curve and line. Ranger sat beside him, tail flicking slowly, eyes scanning the chamber with steady concentration. The bond between man and dog palpable. Jack felt a swell of emotion, a quiet awe at the dedication and faith of those who had left these treasures behind. The faint hum of the church above seemed to vibrate through the floor, a subtle reminder of the lives that had moved through this space. Jack carefully replaced the figurines and scrolls, preserving the arrangement, feeling the weight of responsibility settle lightly on his shoulders, the moment stretching with a sense of reverence and wonder. He allowed himself to breathe deeply, absorbing the stillness and the history interwoven with the air. Ranger nudged him again, guiding his gaze to an alcove where the light shimmered across a delicate tapestry of faded threads, the colors muted but still hinting at the vibrancy once held. Jack knelt to touch the fabric, tracing the patterns, imagining the hands that had woven them, the intentions and prayers woven silently into every stitch. The air around him seemed to shift slightly, carrying with it a faint warmth and the faint scent of old incense. Jack felt a connection, a thread linking past and present, man and dog, faith and discovery. Ranger rested his head lightly against Jack's knee, offering quiet companionship, the chamber now fully alive in his imagination, each shadow and glint of light telling a story, a soft, unspoken understanding passing between them that they were exactly where they were meant to be. And as Jack stood, he glanced once more at the hidden treasures, the sunlight catching the edges of the carvings and casting a gentle glow across the floor, the sense of purpose and wonder settling within him like a quiet blessing. Ranger by his side, tail flicking in slow rhythm. They ascended the staircase together, the echo of their footsteps blending with the whispers of the past, carrying forward a sense of reverence, curiosity, and the enduring power of kindness that had survived in the shadows beneath the altar for decades. Jack Harper emerged from the narrow stairwell into the main nave once more, the filtered sunlight catching the dust motes and turning them into tiny floating constellations. Ranger at his side, ears pricked and tail swaying gently, the wooden pews lining the aisle worn smooth by countless footsteps long past. Jack ran his hand over the edge of the pulpit, feeling the grain of the wood and the subtle indentations left by years of use. A faint aroma of old candle wax and aged paper lingering in the air. He paused to listen, the quiet hum of the space settling around him. The church alive with memories yet silent. Ranger sniffed at the base of the altar again, nudging a small bundle of papers that Jack had missed on his first pass, unfolding them carefully, revealing letters and handwritten notes that spoke of community gatherings, celebrations, and small acts of kindness carried out decades before. Jack felt a warmth spreading through his chest, the legacy of goodness that had been nurtured here now brushing against his own heart, the sunlight shifting through the broken stained glass, casting fractured beams that danced across the stone floor, painting the air in soft hues of blue, red, and gold. Jack traced the beams with his eyes, imagining the figures who had once moved in this light, the congregation that had gathered in prayer and song, Ranger shifting beside him, a gentle nudge reminding Jack of the present, grounding him. He walked slowly down the aisle, pausing to inspect small carvings on the pews, the initials and symbols left behind like whispered signatures from souls long gone, each detail inviting reflection and quiet wonder. Jack reached the back of the nave where a small door, half hidden by a stack of broken chairs, caught the sunlight in a way that suggested importance. He knelt to clear the debris, the scent of pine and old varnish rising as he moved the wood. Ranger sitting patiently, tail flicking with anticipation. Jack pushed the door open and discovered a shallow chamber lined with more relics, religious texts, and small wooden boxes containing items of personal significance. He gently lifted each object, feeling the history embedded in them, the care and attention of the hands that had placed them there decades ago. Ranger nosed a corner of the chamber, alert, and Jack realized the dog had sensed a faint trace of something important, leading him to a small brass key hidden beneath a faded cloth, the metal cool and smooth in his palm. Jack examined the key, a sense of discovery filling him, the realization that these items were not merely artifacts but conduits of stories, faith, and community. He breathed deeply, absorbing the atmosphere, the quiet reverence, and the intangible warmth that seemed to settle in the very stones of the building. Ranger rested his head lightly against Jack's leg, offering quiet companionship. As he stood and adjusted the beam of his flashlight, Jack looked around the nave one last time, taking in the interplay of light and shadow, the texture of stone and wood, the lingering presence of past lives, feeling an unspoken connection to all who had walked this space before. And in that stillness, he understood that the church, abandoned though it was, held a pulse of life, history, and kindness, a subtle heartbeat that spoke across the years, a reminder that the echoes of devotion and care could survive even the longest silence, and that those willing to listen, to observe, and to honor what came before could feel the quiet, enduring miracle of a place filled with human warmth and spirit. Jack Harper lingered in the nave a moment longer, the subtle warmth of sunlight filtering through fractured stained glass, painting the stone floor in gentle hues of amber and crimson. Ranger at his side, moving cautiously, yet with an air of confidence that suggested he had sensed something waiting just beyond. Jack traced the contours of the altar, noting faint scratches and carvings almost hidden beneath layers of dust and grime, the smell of aged wood and faint incense still lingering in the air. He stepped toward the entrance to the choir loft, the narrow stair creaking beneath his boots, the sound blending with the faint rustle of his jacket and Ranger's padded steps. Jack paused to let his eyes adjust to the dimmer light, catching the glint of a small metallic object partially obscured behind a row of broken pews. Ranger nudged him, tail flicking, eyes bright with anticipation. Jack bent down to lift the object, discovering an old brass lantern, its glass cloudy but intact. He cradled it carefully, the cool metal warming in his hands, a small ribbon tied to the handle whispering of forgotten ceremonies and celebrations. Ranger sniffed the air around the loft, ears flicking at a sound only he seemed to detect, leading Jack toward a narrow trapdoor tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Jack pried it open to reveal a shallow cavity lined with remnants of parchment and thin wooden panels, each piece carefully positioned as if to guide discovery. He lifted the items one by one, feeling the texture of worn paper and carved wood, the history embedded in each artifact settling around him. The air fragrant with memories of long-past prayers, songs, and whispered confidences. Jack's mind traced the stories that might have unfolded here, the faithful moving through the nave in quiet devotion, the laughter of children echoing faintly in his imagination. Ranger pawed gently at a bundle of notes, drawing Jack's attention to a small folded letter tied with twine. He carefully untied it. Reading the script, the words painted vivid images of community, gatherings, acts of kindness, and devotion carried out quietly yet persistently over decades. Jack felt a swell of gratitude and reverence, understanding that these objects represented not wealth, but the enduring spirit of care and commitment. The lantern caught a stray ray of sunlight, the glass reflecting warm patterns on the walls. Jack set it carefully on a shelf, the soft thud echoing gently in the loft. Ranger sat nearby, chest rising and falling in slow rhythm, tail flicking as if in silent agreement. Jack stepped back to take in the loft fully, the scattered artifacts, the interplay of light and shadow, the quiet pulse of history wrapping around them like a gentle cloak. He allowed himself a deep breath, savoring the connection to those who had been here long before, the quiet reminder that spaces could hold memory, love, and hope, that even in abandonment, acts of devotion endured, guiding and inspiring those willing to notice. Jack felt the subtle weight of responsibility settle upon him, a gentle reminder that some discoveries were meant to be preserved, honored, and shared. Ranger nudged his hand, grounding him in the present, and together they lingered for a final moment in the soft golden light, absorbing the silent wisdom and quiet miracles held within the stone walls of the forgotten church, knowing that this experience had shifted something within both of them, leaving an imprint of reverence, connection, and enduring faith. Jack Harper lingered near the altar, Ranger at his side, the dog's amber eyes scanning the chamber with quiet intensity, the faint hum of sunlight filtering through broken stained glass reflecting off dust motes that danced in the air like tiny spirits. Jack reached out to touch the worn stone surface, feeling the centuries of care embedded in its texture. A soft breeze moved through the shattered windows, carrying the faint scent of moss and aged wood. He bent to examine a small pile of loose manuscripts, the edges frayed and yellowed, the ink faded yet still legible, each page a snapshot of lives once lived, of prayers whispered and songs sung. Ranger nudged a small box tucked in the corner, and Jack carefully opened it to reveal delicate carvings of angels and symbols of hope, his fingers brushing over each piece with reverence, the warmth of the dog against his leg grounding him in the present while connecting him to the history around them. He set the objects carefully back in place, mindful of the stories they carried, and allowed his gaze to sweep over the nave once more, imagining the congregation that had filled the space with life and devotion, the sunlight shifting slightly, highlighting the subtle imperfections in the stone and wood that told a story of resilience and faith. Jack stepped closer to a narrow alcove where faint markings suggested a hidden message. Brushing away dust, he uncovered a small collection of notes, carefully folded and tied with faded ribbon, the handwriting delicate and deliberate, a rhythm of hope and devotion flowing through the letters. He held them gently, inhaling the faint scent of old paper and candle wax, feeling a quiet connection to those who had penned them decades ago. Ranger sat beside him, tail flicking in slow, steady rhythm, the dog's presence a reminder of loyalty and intuition. Jack carefully read through the notes, absorbing the sentiments and small miracles documented in them, the soft echoes of the space enveloping him, a sense of reverence and calm settling over his shoulders, the church alive in memory even as it lay silent in the present. He traced the carvings along the altar rail, the patterns intricate, each groove a testament to hands that had labored in faith. Jack allowed himself a moment to breathe deeply, taking in the subtle interplay of light, shadow, and texture, the sense of continuity and guardianship filling him with a quiet awe. Ranger shifted closer, nudging his hand as if to confirm that the discoveries were meaningful. Jack rose slowly, feeling the weight of history and responsibility, the chamber around them imbued with patience, care, and enduring kindness. Each step he took echoed softly against stone, harmonizing with the faint creaks of the old wooden beams above, a subtle reminder that even in silence, the spirit of the place remained vigilant. Jack's eyes caught a flicker of sunlight on the edge of the altar, where a small, concealed compartment had gone unnoticed, He knelt to inspect it further, finding a single, intricately carved pendant and a folded note, the item delicate, yet emanating a sense of profound importance. Ranger's ears flicked toward a distant sound, a gentle draft or perhaps the subtle pulse of the building itself. Jack held the pendant carefully, sensing the tangible connection to the people who had once entrusted their hopes, prayers, and stories to this space. The warmth of the dog, the quiet light, and the lingering scent of history wrapped around him. And in that serene moment, he felt a deep sense of purpose, understanding that the care and faith invested here had created a legacy that he and Ranger were now a part of, a continuity that transcended time and left a lasting impression of reverence, wonder, and the quiet miracles that endure when someone chooses to notice. Jack Harper stepped carefully back into the nave, Ranger walking steadily beside him, the dog's senses alert to every subtle shift in the air, the fractured sunlight streaming through the broken stained glass, creating a mosaic of colors across the worn stone floor. Jack's eyes swept over the altar and pews, taking in the quiet majesty and history embedded in every surface. He felt the weight of decades pressing softly around him, a gentle hum of memories that seemed to pulse through the space. Ranger paused, sniffing near the base of a pillar, ears flicking, tail low yet steady, guiding Jack to a previously unnoticed alcove where the stone floor rose slightly, hinting at another hidden compartment. He knelt slowly, brushing away layers of dust and cobwebs, uncovering a small carved box with intricate patterns of vines and leaves etched into its surface, the scent of old wood and faint incense mingling in the air. Jack lifted the lid to reveal a collection of letters, small trinkets, and delicate pieces of jewelry, each item carrying the echo of prayers and acts of kindness from decades past. He traced his fingers over the letters, reading carefully, the script fading but the meaning clear, stories of people who had gathered here, supported one another, and left small treasures for future generations to find. The sunlight shifted again, catching the edges of the jewelry and illuminating the dust particles, turning them into tiny floating stars. Ranger nudged Jack's hand with his nose, a silent reminder that the discovery was significant. Jack felt a swell of gratitude and reverence, realizing that these objects were not merely relics, but a living testament to devotion and faith. He carefully placed each item back into the box, mindful of its original arrangement, the quiet of the church wrapping around him like a protective shroud, the faint creak of the wooden beams above adding to the sense of age and endurance. Jack stood and stepped back, taking in the full nave, the broken windows, the altar, the scattered sunlight, and the shadows that danced along the walls. He felt a profound connection to those who had walked these aisles long before, the echoes of their prayers and songs resonating softly within him. Ranger sat beside him, watching intently, his amber eyes reflecting the fractured light. Jack exhaled slowly, letting the peace and solemnity of the moment wash over him, a quiet understanding settling in that the legacy of this place, its hidden treasures, and the kindness preserved within its walls was now part of his own journey. He ran a hand along the edge of a pew, feeling the smooth worn wood and imagining the countless hands that had rested there, the soft whispers of past voices filling the air in imagination. He glanced toward the narrow stairwell leading to the choir loft, feeling a gentle tug of curiosity, a pull to continue exploring. Ranger moving purposefully ahead, and together they ascended the stairs, each step echoing softly, the interplay of light and shadow stretching along the walls. Jack feeling a sense of awe and reverence, the space alive with memory, history, and the enduring presence of faith and kindness. Every detail, every artifact, every fragment of light weaving together to create a tapestry of quiet miracles. The church, abandoned though it was, radiating warmth and legacy, and in the stillness, Jack understood that the stories, the devotion, and the care that had been preserved here were meant to be honored, felt, and remembered, a silent blessing extending across the decades, witnessed by him and Ranger as they moved through the space, carrying forward the quiet magic of the past into the present. Jack Harper finally stepped into the quiet morning air, the church doors creaking softly behind him as Ranger padded faithfully at his side, the scent of damp earth and pine drifting in from the surrounding forest, sunlight catching the edges of the broken stained glass and scattering rainbow fragments across the overgrown path. Jack breathed deeply, feeling the cool air fill his lungs, a sense of calm settling in that had been absent for months. Ranger sniffed at the stone steps, tail low yet steady, alert to every sound and movement. Jack took a slow step forward, glancing back at the altar and the nave. The memories of the hidden treasures and letters still vivid in his mind. He traced his hand over the rough surface of the doorframe one last time, feeling the weight of history pressed into the wood, the sunlight warming his shoulders and illuminating the dust that lingered in the air like tiny stars suspended in a vast, silent galaxy. He walked down the path leading away from the church, Ranger trotting beside him, the quiet crunch of gravel beneath their boots blending with the distant rustle of leaves and the faint trickle of a nearby stream. Jack's thoughts wandered over the stories he had uncovered, the acts of kindness, faith, and devotion preserved within the walls of the building. He imagined the hands that had left the letters and artifacts, the quiet determination of people committed to something larger than themselves. The air seemed to hum with the echoes of their prayers, a gentle rhythm that Jack could almost hear as he moved through the morning light. Ranger paused at the edge of the forest, sniffing the breeze, ears flicking, and Jack followed, noticing how every detail of the natural world seemed alive, the sunlight dappling the trunks of tall pines, the wind carrying distant bird calls and the scent of wet soil. He felt a quiet gratitude for this shared moment, the discovery, the silence, and the way it had renewed something within him. Ranger nudged his hand with his nose, a reminder of the companionship and loyalty that had guided him through the shadows of the church and the hidden chamber. Jack knelt briefly to run his fingers through the soft earth at the base of a small oak, feeling the texture and the life pulsing beneath, a tactile connection to the enduring presence of nature and history intertwined. He stood, stretching slightly, feeling the weight of responsibility and the blessing of insight. Each step forward felt purposeful, the church behind him no longer abandoned in his mind, but vibrant with the echoes of those who had built it, maintained it, and cherished it. Jack glanced once more over his shoulder, the morning light catching the edges of the broken windows and glinting across the stone, a quiet smile touching his lips, Ranger resting close by, alert yet calm, the two of them walking side by side into the day, carrying with them the stories, the lessons, and the quiet miracles preserved in a space that had waited patiently for someone to notice, to honor, and to continue the legacy. Jack felt the weight and joy of discovery, a sense of connection bridging the past and present, a reminder that even in the silence and stillness, kindness, faith, and devotion endure, waiting for eyes willing to see and hearts ready to receive. And together they moved forward, leaving gentle footprints in the gravel, a quiet testament to the day, the church, and the enduring spirit of all who had walked its halls before them. Jack Harper and Ranger paused at the edge of the forest clearing, the morning light spilling across the overgrown path leading back toward the old church, the air crisp and filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze brush against his face, his thoughts returning to the hidden compartments, the letters, and the artifacts he had discovered beneath the altar, each object carrying the echoes of hope, faith, and human kindness across decades. Ranger circled once and returned to Jack's side, his amber eyes scanning the surrounding trees, as if sensing unseen stories waiting to be told. Jack adjusted his pack, feeling the weight of responsibility settle comfortably on his shoulders. He imagined the congregation that had once filled the nave with song, prayer, and quiet devotion, the lives of people intertwined with this space, and now touching him. He ran his fingers along the worn strap of his flashlight, recalling the glint of sunlight catching the brass of the lantern and the delicate carvings of angels and vines, the letters tied with faded ribbons, each a testimony of care and generosity. Ranger nudged him gently, and Jack followed the dog's guidance toward a small footbridge leading over a narrow stream, the water clear and shallow, sunlight dancing on its surface, the sound of the gentle flow, blending with the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of birds. Jack knelt for a moment to touch the cool water, letting the quiet rhythm calm his mind and ground him in the present. Ranger sitting beside him, Tail flicking slowly, alert but serene, he stood again, glancing up at the church's silhouette framed against the morning sky, the broken windows and weathered stone reflecting the journey he had just taken through discovery, reflection, and quiet awe. He allowed a soft smile to touch his lips, the weight of the past and present mingling in the warmth of the sunlight. Ranger gave a low, approving whine, the sound merging with the gentle hum of the forest. Jack continued along the path, noticing wildflowers peeking through cracks in the stonework, the delicate blues and yellows adding subtle color to the earthy palette, each step measured, thoughtful, connecting him to the space he had explored, to the hidden treasures that had revealed themselves, and to the sense of guardianship that had settled quietly in his chest, the morning stretching wide and open, carrying with it the promise of continued exploration and understanding. Jack breathed deeply again, feeling the gentle pulse of the earth beneath his boots, the history of the place and the lives that had shaped it now woven subtly into his own story. Ranger nudged his hand once more, their silent communication affirming the bond forged through shared experience. The morning sunlight filtering through the trees, catching dust and pollen in tiny golden shafts. Jack lifted his gaze to the horizon, taking in the expanse of forest, sky, and the silhouette of the church behind them, and felt a profound sense of completion, mixed with anticipation, knowing that the lessons, the kindness, and the quiet miracles preserved in this place would continue to resonate, guiding his steps, and he and Ranger moved forward together, leaving the clearing with gentle confidence, each footfall a quiet testament to the enduring power of patience, observation, and the subtle, miraculous connections that span time, space, and human hearts. Jack Harper and Ranger continued along the narrow forest path, the sunlight warming their backs as they navigated through the gentle undulations of the land, the forest alive with the faint hum of insects and the soft rustle of leaves swaying in the breeze. Jack's mind lingered on the letters and artifacts he had discovered beneath the altar, each one a silent testament to hope, faith, and enduring kindness. Ranger paused to sniff at a patch of wildflowers growing along the edge of the path, their delicate blues and yellows nodding gently in the wind. Jack bent slightly to observe them, appreciating the quiet beauty and fragility of life thriving even in unexpected places. He ran his hand along the rough bark of a nearby oak, feeling the subtle texture and energy of the tree, imagining the countless seasons it had witnessed, the lives that had passed beneath its branches, and the stillness that had absorbed the echoes of laughter, prayer, and devotion. Ranger moved ahead, ears high, tail low but confident, guiding Jack toward a sunlit clearing where the remnants of an old stone wall peeked through the undergrowth, the scattered light highlighting moss-covered stones and the faint outlines of carvings weathered by time. Jack knelt to examine them, tracing his fingers over the shapes, sensing the care and intention behind each mark, the way the space had been curated by hands that had hoped, prayed, and lived with purpose. He lifted a small stone, uncovering a hidden cavity, containing more notes and delicate tokens left by those who had cherished this place. The smell of earth and aged paper rising in the warm air. Jack felt a swell of gratitude for their foresight and the trust placed in the unknown finder. Ranger nudged a folded note with his nose, and Jack carefully opened it, reading words that spoke of guidance, encouragement, and the quiet miracles that could be witnessed by those patient enough to observe. The sunlight shifted, illuminating the forest floor in dappled patterns, shadows moving like gentle reminders of the continuity of life. Jack rose, taking a slow breath, feeling the pulse of the forest, the weight of history, and the gentle pull of connection to all who had come before. Ranger sat beside him, alert but calm, tail flicking, eyes reflecting the shafts of light. Jack looked around at the expanse of trees, the distant church still visible through the leaves, its broken windows and weathered stone a reminder of what they had discovered. He felt a deep sense of purpose and peace, understanding that this experience had not only revealed hidden treasures, but had also reaffirmed the enduring power of observation, patience, and the quiet acts of kindness that carry meaning across time. Ranger nudged his hand again, and Jack reached down, resting his hand on the dog's head, feeling the warmth, loyalty, and silent wisdom that had guided him through every step of the journey. Together they continued forward along the path, the forest stretching wide, the air filled with the scent of pine, moss, and earth, each step a gentle affirmation of discovery, reverence, and connection, the sunlight brightening, carrying with it a sense of renewal and the quiet understanding that the legacy of kindness and devotion they had uncovered would endure, inspiring those willing to notice. And as they moved further from the clearing, Jack allowed himself a soft smile. The forest, the church, the artifacts, and Ranger beside him all combining to create a moment of profound reflection, gratitude, and the subtle, miraculous reminder that the past, present, and future are quietly intertwined. Jack Harper slowed his pace as he approached the edge of the meadow beyond the forest, Ranger faithfully at his side, ears pricked and tail swaying gently. The morning sun spilling warmth across the tall grasses, turning each blade into a delicate thread of gold. Jack's mind wandered back to the hidden compartments, the letters, and the artifacts beneath the altar, the echo of prayers and stories still vivid in his memory. He breathed deeply, savoring the crisp air and the faint scent of wildflowers that mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil. Ranger paused, sniffing at the base of a small rock formation, nudging Jack toward a shallow depression that had been hidden by overgrown ferns and moss. Jack knelt and brushed away the foliage, discovering a small wooden box tucked just beneath the earth, its surface weathered but intact. He lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of decades and the silent intention of the hands that had placed it there. Inside lay more letters, delicate tokens, and tiny hand-carved symbols. Jack traced each with reverence, imagining the lives and hopes they represented. Ranger rested his head lightly against Jack's leg, offering comfort and companionship as he absorbed the significance of the discovery. The sunlight shifting across the meadow, shadows moving like gentle reminders of the continuity of life. Jack felt a swell of gratitude and quiet joy. The connection between past and present, the endurance of kindness and faith, filling him with a sense of purpose. He read through the letters slowly, each word carrying warmth, encouragement, and the quiet magic of small acts performed with love. Ranger nudged another small artifact with his nose, prompting Jack to examine it. A tiny carved figurine of an angel, its edges smooth and worn by time, the symbol of protection and hope strikingly clear. Jack held it carefully, letting its presence anchor him in the moment. He rose slowly, stretching his shoulders, and glanced across the meadow toward the distant outline of the church, sunlight glinting off broken glass and weathered stone. Feeling a profound connection to the space and to the people who had shaped it, Ranger stepped forward, leading Jack along a gentle incline where wildflowers swayed in the breeze. The interplay of color, light, and shadow creating a living tapestry around them. Jack allowed his eyes to wander across the horizon, noting the movement of birds and the gentle ripple of leaves, the world alive and full of subtle beauty. He felt the weight of responsibility mingling with the quiet elation of discovery, the understanding that the legacy he had uncovered was not only physical but spiritual, a reminder of human perseverance, faith, and care preserved through time. Ranger nudged him once more, and Jack reached down to place a hand on the dog's head, feeling the warmth and loyalty that had guided him throughout the journey, the sunlight warming his back. Jack took a deep breath, savoring the stillness, the harmony of nature and history blending around them. He looked once more toward the church, the meadow, and the forest beyond, feeling a sense of continuity and hope, a subtle but profound knowledge that the acts of devotion and kindness preserved in the church and hidden chambers would continue to resonate through time. And with Ranger at his side, he stepped forward into the light of the morning, carrying the quiet miracle of discovery, reflection, and enduring connection with him as the day stretched open, full of possibility and the gentle promise of unseen blessings yet to be uncovered. Jack Harper finally reached the top of the gentle hill overlooking the meadow and the distant outline of the old church, Ranger standing faithfully beside him, tail low but steady, ears flicking at the soft whispers of wind that rustled through the tall grasses, sunlight spilling across the landscape in a warm, golden haze. Jack inhaled deeply, letting the cool air fill his lungs, the scents of pine, wildflowers, and damp earth mingling in a subtle symphony that grounded him in the present. While connecting him to the stories of the past, he glanced back toward the church, the broken stained glass glinting in the morning light, and felt a quiet reverence for all that had been uncovered within its walls, the letters, artifacts, and tokens of devotion and kindness weaving a tapestry of faith that spanned decades. Ranger nudged him gently, amber eyes fixed on the horizon, and Jack followed the dog's gaze, noticing how the sunlight highlighted the contours of the forest, the soft undulations of the land, and the small, hidden details that made the world feel alive and interconnected. He thought of the hands that had placed treasures beneath the altar, the prayers whispered into the quiet stone, and the quiet dedication of people who had invested hope and care into the space, each act now echoing through time, a gentle pulse of continuity and meaning. Jack knelt briefly in the grass, feeling the cool blades beneath his hands, reflecting on the journey that had led him here, the sense of responsibility and stewardship that had grown within him. Ranger sitting alert, tail flicking slowly, head turning slightly to catch every movement. Jack rose and walked slowly toward a small cluster of trees at the edge of the hill, the forest beyond stretching into a horizon softened by the golden morning, his thoughts returning to the hidden compartments and the objects within them. The sense of discovery mingled with a quiet joy, knowing that these relics of faith, hope, and devotion would endure and continue to inspire. He adjusted the strap of his backpack and felt the weight of the lantern, letters, and small trinkets, each a symbol of human perseverance and kindness. Ranger pressed lightly against his leg, grounding him in a moment of stillness and reflection. Jack allowed his eyes to roam over the landscape, the interplay of light, shadow, and the subtle textures of the earth and trees drawing him into a deep appreciation for the continuity of life. He thought of the congregation that had once filled the nave with song and prayer, the children who had run along the aisles, the voices that had echoed and faded into memory, and he felt a profound connection to the invisible thread that linked past, present, and future. Ranger gave a soft whine, tail flicking, and Jack smiled, feeling the bond between them strengthened by the shared experience, the quiet miracles and hidden treasures discovered now interwoven with his own journey. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, the grass brushing against his boots, the gentle sway of wildflowers at his feet, the sunlight warming his back, and he realized that the lessons of patience, observation, and reverence were now part of him, a quiet wisdom that he could carry into every step that followed. Jack exhaled, letting the serenity of the moment wash over him, the soft hum of life around him, the subtle scents, the warmth of sunlight, and the steady presence of Ranger, all combining to create a lasting sense of peace, connection, and gratitude. The church and its hidden treasures, the forest, and the meadow, all imbuing him with a quiet understanding that the kindness, faith, and devotion preserved here were enduring, waiting for those who notice and honor them. And as he and Ranger descended the hill slowly, the world seemed alive with possibilities, each footstep a continuation of the legacy, a gentle promise that even in forgotten places, miracles and meaning quietly persist.